Welcome to another episode of Is This for Kids? I am Jonathan Bearded Blevins, father of 3, 1 on the way. And I think that most media marketed towards children is turning them into monsters.
Like literally?
No.
Okay.
But I'd have to come up with a fun catchphase every time.
Horns sprouting. I'm Katie, MrsRuvi.
Grumpuses!
Indeed. I am a mother of 5, and I think that most media marketed to kids can be redeemed. And I think sometimes media that seems marketed to kids isn't really for kids. But that's anyway. The podcast that we are talking about here is to tell parents what's in a piece of content so that they might want to shield their kids from it. If something is a conversation that's going to need to come up that they might want to shepherd their kid through, and how they can use this media to just share in their kids' life experience. What are we talking about today?
What a blessing. Today we're talking about Red One. It feels like The Rock is everywhere.
He is.
Right? Jumanji.
Oh, hey, Dwayne.
Dwayne.
Just
Maybe
kidding.
we should have asked if he wants to be a guest on the show.
I think that's how it works. Like, you just invite him into shows.
Moana 2.
He's
I mean, he
everywhere.
is just everywhere right now. Red One, Christmas movie. His first, I think, attempt
At a Christmas movie?
at a Christmas movie.
I don't know. I mean, this is in the vein of action stars becoming Christmas movie people. You know, Arnold did it.
I'm bringing
not
that up later. What a blessing.
What a blessing.
So Red One, why don't you go ahead and give the synopsis for our audience?
So the general theme of Red One is that Santa Claus has been kidnapped by a winter witch, Christmas witch known as Grilla. She's based on an actual, I think it's Icelandic myth, but there are other like Nordic countries who have a very similar character with a similar name. And she's a woman who punishes naughty kids as opposed to bringing presents to good kids.
Yeah. So she's awesome. Just kidding.
Yeah, very much in line with Krampus, who also makes an appearance as St. Nicholas's brother in the movie. Anyway, he has been kidnapped by Grilla and is being held because she has decided she is going to punish the naughty kids of the world. And actually not just limiting it to naughty kids, naughty adults, and anybody who she feels shouldn't be in the world. She thinks she's going to wake up to a world full of only good people after she's done this. And Cal, played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, is tasked with getting Santa Claus back using the help of Jack O'Malley, who is Chris Evans, or Captain America.
Captain America.
If you will. And he is a level 4 naughty lister. Very naughty.
Yeah.
Terribly naughty man. So naughty.
Oh my gosh. Stop.
Terrible father.
Stop that.
You don't like the word naughty.
No, I do not. I do not at all.
Okay.
Level 4 naughty.
Super naughty.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah, he is an interesting character. He's the father, but kind of an absentee father.
Yeah, admittedly absentee.
Yeah, and the kind of whole movie is really
Degenerate gambler. So, like, let's just start with the shield. Like, what is there in there that you think parents would want maybe to know about to shield their kids from?
Well, I first just need to say that I was kind of shocked by how much I kind of enjoyed this movie. Mm-hmm. It wasn't amazing. I don't love it, but like I enjoyed it. And I wasn't like, wow, this is a dumb money maker. As far as shielding goes, it is hard to tell who the movie is for.
Yeah.
Because part of me feels like it's a movie for us, for millennial parents who want to go take a break and not watch it with their kids. Kind of like if you liked, I'll get into this later, but Shield, there's some creepy creatures, some really scary looking creatures, Krampus and all of his, the witch in her true form, all very scary. There's a ton of language.
Lots of language.
Yeah.
And specifically, there's a lot of BS's and A-holes in almost every scene.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a lot, but then there's also so many moments of like just pure funny humor that is appropriate, that it makes you kind of forget about all the language. I feel like I didn't walk away from that movie being like, wow, that was a ton of language, but it was.
Yeah.
But those would be the two things that I would shield kids from for sure.
Yeah, Jack O'Malley's character does drink pretty heavily at the beginning of the movie, and he also does gamble quite a lot. He talks a lot about gambling.
An entire bottle of bourbon
Is a lot.
and $25,000 on one bet. So yeah. About as bad of each of those things as you could do.
Degeneracy kind of a situation. Yeah. So in my notes I wrote, if you were okay with your kids seeing Guardians of the Galaxy, you're probably going to be okay with this. In the same way like you're talking about, I was very like, I don't know who this is made for, because it is a Santa Claus movie, but it's a serious Santa Claus action movie. Like, if you enjoy Star Wars, if you have a good time with, like, if you can get past the fact that there's weird critters, basically is what I'm saying, then you could enjoy this movie just as an action movie. It's kind of a very 90s feel action movie.
Yeah.
And so it felt to me like what you're saying, that it was actually more meant for adults. And to that end, in the theater, we always talk about how there's always these kids in these movies that we don't think they should be. There were 0 kids in this movie when I saw it.
Same.
Only adults. So I don't know that this has the appeal for kids that it, I mean, it would be fun. Like, it's the same kind of Guardians of the Galaxy feel, just maybe Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Like, there's an implied mother effer that gets taken out.
Yeah.
They bleep it. So, like, it's strong language. It's very much an action movie, and it might not appeal to younger kids. But, yeah. I
didn't see any kids in the theater either. I will say I saw multiple 50-plus-year-old women going to the movie together at like 3 or 4 different like friends.
Uh-huh.
They all brought blankets.
I bring blankets.
I have never seen this in my life until
Always bring a
recently.
blanket.
They all had blankets, and 2 of the couples, like 2 of the groups of them, were laughing louder than I've ever heard anyone laugh in a comedy movie at non-funny parts in the very beginning. I did not get it at all.
I'm so happy for those women.
I was like, I was like, are you high? Like what are you do? They walk in at the very beginning. Jack O'Malley's a kid. Mm-hmm. Who's his dad? Do you remember? Like, his dad's very famous. He's in the scene. He's in the movie for
like 30 seconds.
But he's a very famous actor, and I know he's from a movie or a show that 50-year-old women love, and I don't know which one. He shows up, and I mean cackling, and it wasn't funny. Like, he's there. He's just there, and he's just like,
to see him.
Son,
I have to look
Santa Claus is real, and the ladies were like, ah! I was awful. Anyway, thank goodness.
Uncle
his
Rick.
uncle.
Oh, it's Mark Evan Jackson.
Yeah, he looked so familiar.
He's the principal in Davy and Jonesy's Locker. That's where you've seen him recently.
Oh my gosh, could be. Either way, that was very weird.
Oh, he's also in The Good Place.
Oh, yes, The Good Place. That could be it. The cackling was very weird, but thank goodness that it was an action movie, and so I couldn't hear their weird laughs at weird times.
There was also a thing, like, I ended up Googling this in the theater. J.K. Simmons, who plays Santa Claus, was jacked in this movie.
Jacked.
And I was like, is this a body double? Did they AI superimpose somebody on there? No, he worked
jacked.
out like crazy for this movie. And they were like, did you work out with The Rock? He's like, no, absolutely not, because that's too intimidating.
Yeah.
So just wild that there's even a scene where Santa Claus is doing push-ups with Mrs. Claus, and it just highlights it. It's wild.
It makes way more sense that Santa is jacked in order to be able to get to every single house than him to be wildly obese eating cookies all the time.
For sure.
That was cool. But okay, shepherd. What would you shepherd?
You know, there was like a lot of there was a good question to be had in here, a good conversation to be had in here, because this is a movie that appeals more to older people and older kids. And honestly, I'd like to see this conversation happen around dinner tables with your very older relatives who tend to fall into one particular camp. Is what is more important, justice or mercy? And can they coexist? Is it always just to be merciful? Is it always merciful to forego punishment? Like, it's a very interesting conversation to be had. And like when there's a part at the end where some naughty characters have been imprisoned and they get out, and it's kind of an interesting way that it happens. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was a good conversation to talk about.
I'm with you there. I thought just a really cool, it's interesting you say that, because I thought it was, you could have a good conversation. There's an estranged father who's admittedly estranged.
Bad.
Just a bad father-son relationship. And if you talk to any guy, right, I have a great relationship with my dad. If you talk to any guy, most guys have an issue with their dad, some type of issue, whether it's minor or major with their dad, right? You know, the mean daddy issues, all these kinds of things.
I thought that was mostly girls.
No, guys have deep father wounds. Often. It's kind of a normal thing.
I think that's a lot. Yeah.
Good conversation to be had there as a parent. If you end up watching it with your teenager, which is about the age I would recommend, the youngest of watching this would probably be a teenager. You can talk about, I mean, it's impossible. Like when I was growing up and I saw movies like this, it's impossible not to think, is my dad like this? Do I have issues with my dad? And for me, the answer growing up was like, no, I'm so thankful that my dad is not estranged, but still a good conversation to have with your kid. And you can have great conversations about the importance of forgiveness and how it's never too late to show up. I think that's a good shepherding conversation to have.
Yeah. I love it. That's a good one. Okay.
Look at her. What a blessing.
So into it. Okay. So in the share column, I really just put down that this was a kind of a question about what kind of movies are we putting out there. This was definitely marketed to kids. It felt like it was marketed to kids. Whenever it's Santa Claus and butt-kicking Santa Claus specifically, it feels like a kid marketing situation. But the amount of language that's in there and the pacing of it and the very like action quality of it, it felt like it wasn't made for kids. So this is sort of like a weird space that I would like to talk about for just a second with you.
For me, it's Marvel meets Christmas.
Yeah.
Except a little more inappropriate than most Marvel movies. You had a great example of Guardians of the Galaxy. I kind of was reminded of like a more inappropriate Santa Claus, like Tim Allen, the Santa Claus, and a more inappropriate Jingle All the Way, which are two movies that I absolutely love. And there's like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tim Allen, and you've got The Rock here, and it's fun. I will absolutely watch this with my kid when he's 13, 14 years old and kind of have fun with it.
Yeah.
It's definitely, for me, it's definitely not a movie that's like for kids, for little kids.
Yeah. And from the Santa perspective, like even the color schemes, like we've got Santa in red leather as opposed to like a jolly red velvet suit. Like it's not bright. Everything's a little bit more toned down. And like the silly things don't even seem as silly, like the abominable snowmen that go and attack them. They're not even like, they're kind of scary. Like they kind of fall in.
Even the elves are not cute.
They're not cute. They look like little goblins, but they're not scary necessarily unless you're just scared of the way that things look. But like, it looks like it was taking itself a little bit more seriously than a Santa movie. Like, it was not meant to be, it was just like a mythology movie, sort of like Thor rather than... Yeah, interesting. It's a weird space. It's maybe one of those good like bridge movies for getting your kids into adultier content, something a little more weighty. Yeah,
I will say this. Spoiler, if don't listen to, I mean, this is not a podcast for kids, so don't listen to this around your kids anyway.
Yeah.
But I love it when a movie about Santa has some type of fun new way to think about how he could possibly actually exist. Mm-hmm. And this with like the governments of the world are in on it. And there's this whole organization that protects mythological creatures. Mm-hmm. And there's this force field that they use where it looks like you're just looking at the North Pole and looking at nature. But like inside of there is this entire town of the North Pole. That is awesome.
Yeah.
I thought that was really fun. And like helpful if you are going to show your kids, if you don't care about violence, scary stuff, and language, and you are going to show this to your kid who still believes in Santa, it's not going to ruin it for them. Okay. What age would you say this is appropriate for kids? I'm going 13 years old and up.
I would say whatever age you thought was appropriate for Guardians of the Galaxy. So for me, that would have been 10.
10 with the language here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of my kids have heard that kind of language.
Scary.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So 13, she says 10. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. If people wanted to find more content like this, where would they find us?
Go to isthisforkids.com. Do us a favor. Find whichever platform you use the most to listen to podcasts. Click it, leave a 5-star review for us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like all those videos, and follow us on Instagram. You can go to isthisforkids.com and find us all there.
Excellent. Just go through and comment, I believe in Santa, on literally every video we've ever made. You've got some work to do. It'll take you until the new year. Hey, there is so much content out there for us to navigate as parents.
I'm Jonathan Beard of Blevins.
I am Katie, MrsRuvi. Let us help you decide.
Is this for kids?